How's it going, everyone, and welcome to the 5th anniversary of the release of Little Burned Maiden, my first professionally released game, the assassin life sim about murder and self-care. Now, for this 5th anniversary, I wanted to do a live reaction, but the problem is that I mixed down my audio. So instead, you're gonna get me summarizing my reactions instead of just like 40 minutes of me yapping. So, you know, it's benefiting you in the end. For those of you who don't know, my name is Amaiguri and I am the developer of this game, Little Burned Maiden. It is an assassin life sim about murder and self-care, so you run around, you can dash, you hit things. Oh, in the video I came up with the idea, you'd call it a dash and smash. Isometric perspective, and you go around, you have to figure out people's schedules by reading text documents around the town. You can't destroy the furniture or else you'll end up in debt as you're playing this assassin lady. So you have to go around, you have to track down your people, your targets, you kill them, but in the narrative of the story, if you eat food the day that you die, you return from the abyss, and so you're not actually killing any of these people. And also, it really encourages you to eat food because at the time I was really struggling to remember to eat, so it was sort of like a cute little way for me to try to really ingrain in myself that it's important to take care of yourself by like eating, and there's a lot of other little life simmy elements like there's an ocarina that you can play. You can go around and you can talk to all these people. If you just heard that, that was my rabbits. And by the way, this video is dedicated to Rainy Tay, a fellow RPG Maker developer whose miniseries where she was just playing her game inspired me to do this one. So when I first set out to make Little Burned Maiden, my main goal was to create this game where you run around and you hit things and you dash, and that's basically all you got in the game. And then you talk to people. Because I wanted to keep the scope extremely small because at the time I was still in college and I didn't have any games fully released, and it seemed really important to me. And to be fair, at the time I also was working on usually 2 or 3 games at any given time. Like I would have one for some sort of specific aspect of games that I was learning to develop in one class. I would have a major game project that was by myself, and then I'd have a major game project and teams. So having a 4th game that I was also doing outside of class was a little rough. But on the bright side, I was doing all this during the pandemic, so I was sort of trapped inside anyway. And so my main goal was to make something that was small and cute and sellable. And I was initially, by the way, you can buy this game yourself on itch.io, but only if you use the link in my description because it got banned for having adult content in the whole, thing with Australia and Collector Shout and them deciding that they didn't want, payment processors to process payment. And, I have, very strong opinions on what people should be doing, even if we are talking about like actually like censoring stuff, whether by people or by the government. I have very strong opinions about what people should and shouldn't censor, and I think mass censoring a bunch of random stuff just because this game is a tagged adult, but that's mostly just because I don't want 6-year-olds playing it, because this is in fact a game in which the adult characters are experiencing adult situations and adult emotions. So it's not like there's like hardcore spicy times happening in this. Sorry, I'm trying not to demonetize myself on YouTube also, you know, because I already lost my monetization on Edge. But anyway, so yeah, so if you want, link in the description, go ahead and pick it up. Just for this next, if you're actually watching this video in the first month that it's out, congrats, you get access to a 50% off bonus. For the rest of you, you're gonna have to pay 3 whole 50% off. What am I talking about? I'm sorry. The game is $1, or just $1 USD. The rest of the time, it's $3 USD. So, sorry, it's $2.99. So that's why I'm like in my head about it. But anyway, so as you can see, I did in fact succeed at finishing this project. Not only just finishing the project, but finishing it on schedule, and that was really exciting for me because it meant that I really understood my workflow around the game. It meant that I didn't scope too big, and yeah, I was just like if you've never made a game before, I don't think you can. I'm not sure if you'll ever quite understand how difficult all the little fiddly bits are to make. Like, you have to program, you know, every little last thing. Like, you have to program the text that appears on the screen. You have to program when you press buttons that anything happens at all. And then you have, not to mention the art and the animation, and the writing and the world building and obviously the actual game design. Like, it's everything. And then, of course, if you, like me, don't know how to compose music, then you have to figure out where you're getting music from, and yeah, it's a lot. So nonetheless, it's a very rewarding task. So if you've never ran a game before, I highly encourage you to try it. But yeah, so that being said, I did actually recently have a suspicion that I had totally flubbed the randomization on the characters. So every time you talk to characters when they're not in a cutscene, you get a random dialogue from a selection of like 10 potential dialogues that you can get from them. And I was really suspicious because it seems like they were only doing the first 4. And by default, when you put an NPC in the scene, they had 4 dialogues, but then you could always expand it, and I felt like I hadn't set them correctly. But I actually just checked, and as you can see here, I did in fact do it correctly. So that's pretty impressive. The other thing that I think was a success about this game is that the mechanics do indeed support the narrative that you're an assassin and that you're trying to manage your health, because just the whole concept of having to eat food in order to stay alive, I mean just like in real life, but you know, it's simulated, and in this simulated life you have to do it too. The way that it's sort of about, like, the metaphor, it's a metaphor, obviously, that's saying that in order to care for yourself, you can't necessarily try to be solving everyone else's problems. And so in this particular case, it's that sometimes you gotta murder the people that are opposing you, even though they come back from the dead. You have to inconvenience the people that are opposing you in order to get the things that you want. And at the end, after killing everybody, you end up uniting the North against a more common enemy in the South. So, you know, it's kind of, like, obviously in real life, don't murder people, but I think for the story that it's trying to tell, I think it tells it very successfully. I think it also overall has a pretty decent. It's got a pretty decent soundscape. Like, you can hear the sort of ambiance here. You can hear all the dashing has sounds. All the attack noises are nice. Like, it's got everything that needs it. And I think you could have probably saw on the first menu page that everything had like deep 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 noises when you like moused over it and clicked. So that's something that I'm still proud of to this day. I think the game sounds correct. Now, are all the hitboxes and everything that are making these sounds perfect? No, not really. But I think the sounds are a decent first stab for someone who is not like super into sound design to have done. I think the other thing that I'm really proud of with this is that this really reflects the world as I imagine it. Like, for example, take House de Magnia here. You'll notice that Arlisair's room is on the right here. And then Gil's room is in the middle. And then Lord Einhard's room is here on the left. And this is how I imagine it in actual life, in like if I was actually there in my fantasy world, or in this slightly more realistic depiction of it that I have now in All the Promised Burn, my upcoming game that is set in the same universe, which is about, it's actually a sequel in terms of the story, and it will be coming out in the next year or so here. But as you can see in this, at the right here, you've got Arlisair's room. In the middle, you have Gil's room, and at the left here, you have Lord Einhard's room. And so that's something that I'm proud of, is I think that, to a certain extent, the world is accurately depicted. Like, I think the world building really came through where it kind of felt like you could read every book and you could talk to every person in the town, and that was something that was really important to me, is that the world feels really immersive. But despite all of this, I think the game still has a lot of downsides to it. For example, I think the biggest issue is that there are not enough or very poor animations on a lot of cases. For example, whenever you hit somebody in a boss fight and they knock you back, there's no visual animation to this. You just sort of fly off for no reason, even though it's supposed to be like a phew, like sort of like when you attack the bosses in like Infinity Nikki, I guess is the first name that's coming to mind here. Where after you hit a boss, it like knocks you back so that you can't just like stand next to them and stab them repeatedly. And there's a lot of weird layering in the game too. And not to mention the like mixels, which are mixed size pixels. Which brings me to the next point, is that the art. At the time, I was really told to not emphasize my art. Was as a designer, at least at the school I went to, everyone told you, oh, don't spend too much time on art, don't spend too much time on art, just let the design sing through. And so I very specifically made bad art because it was quick. But the thing is I'm not terrible at art. Like, I think you can look at this and sort of see that it's like vaguely aesthetically pleasing. The colors are somewhat cohesive, even if it's not like the prettiest game on the planet. You can sort of see that like it's somewhat atmospheric. There's a vibe. The high contrast of light is, draws your eyes to particular locations. And I think by making quick art, the art ended up being bad in a lot of cases. And I think that was a big mistake, which is, it's kind of unfortunate. But I do think it holds it back a little bit. Even if everything is still sort of conveying the general tone of the world and stuff, I don't think that it's necessarily depicting things as prettily as I might want. Which you can sort of see also in All the Promised Burn here, where it's like, look at the library here, and then look at the library in All the Promised Burn. It's just so much of a step up. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. I think one of the other big issues was the weird layering and hitboxes of the game. For example, there's a lot of places where you can walk under things or walk over things and they don't really feel right. You can sort of get stuck halfway in a tree visually. As I showed on the main menu, the hitboxes aren't quite exactly where you think they should be. So just a lot of little janky pieces here and there. You can't really tell where the hitbox is on your character either, I'm not gonna lie. It's tough. So I think that this just doesn't particularly help. And all of this ties in to the fact that the programming is just not very good in this game. Programming is one of my weakest skills, honestly, as a developer, right next to music production. And despite like knowing vaguely how programming hypothetically works, I'm really bad at it. I have never been taught much about optimization or performance or whatever, so I think this entire game is pretty much if-then statements. The entire dialogue system is certainly if-then statements. So that's rough. But you can sort of see, and like, for example, one of the things that I did was that in order to make it so that players can back out of long books, I made it so that you could click the attack button to exit at any time, but I don't like display that anywhere, and players click it accidentally or don't get to read things when they want to, and it's just really awkward in generally. And everything is programmed like this. Like, I gave that one example, but when everything is programmed like this, it's a rough time. So everything just feels like it's about to fall apart at any given point. And lastly, from a design perspective, I think its biggest weakness is that while there is a lot of readable lore and it's cool that you can talk to everybody, I think the random lore just doesn't really impact a player's play experience. Like, there's nothing that they can really get from investing the time and energy into reading all of this. I have it in there, and that's kind of neat, I guess, but it's like, what am I going to do with all this? Like, if players don't want to invest in a bunch of lore and stuff unless they think there's going to be payoff to it. And I suppose the payoff, if you memorize all the lore in this, is that when you get into All the Promised Burn, which is the sequel game, that is not in the same genre at all, I'll talk about that in a bit, then it's all entire, like, you get to throw out most of it. Like, because some of the lore was, for example, the lore about the food making you not die was made specifically for this game. That's not accurate to the lore of my larger fantasy world here. So, I think that that is possibly its biggest weakness, is that there's just a bunch of reading stuff and you don't really get anything out of it other than, I guess, the inherent joy of learning random facts that aren't even real. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that that has a lot of appeal. I think I sort of at the time misunderstood the appeal of having lore. So, moving forward with All the Promised Burn, which is my upcoming hand-drawn narrative-focused game about Arlisair, the assassin lady here, and how she handles living in a world after the war. The first thing I'm going to do to change things, or the first thing I've done to change things, is I have switched from Unity, which is what this game is made in, to RPG Maker. The main reason for this is because RPG Maker already has all the built-in functionality that I want, really, for what I'm trying to do, which is have you walk around and talk to people. RPG Maker already has a dialogue system. No more janky, like you can accidentally click out of it or whatever. No more Belle realizing that she has no idea how to program choices. It's just already in there, and so that's much, much nicer. Not to mention there's a lot of, because it's just such an old engine, there's so much support for it nowadays, honestly, still, like, that you can dig up from across the internet. So that's actually my biggest, I think, first thing that I've done to try to address the programming issues and to just make everything move smoother. Secondly, as I've sort of mentioned already, I'm going to lean into my art as a aspect of my work that has appeal. I won't claim that I'm like the best artist ever, or that I even vaguely can hold a candle to what classically trained artists can do, because oh my gosh, have you seen what classically trained artists can do? It's pretty incredible. I also want to focus on my strengths in my storytelling rather than trying to sort of crowbar in things that I'm not as good at. I plan on having All the Promised Burn really focus on just telling a strong linear narrative rather than trying to do all these fancy things with the writing or the storytelling or making like this immersive sim that I'm just sort of not equipped to totally handle. And in light of that, I want to design my gameplay elements around understanding the lore instead of just throwing it in haphazardly. And I want to test out 2 different systems to try this, or maybe have them coexist side by side. The first system that I initially thought up for All the Promised Burn is what people are calling the Metroidvania, which I don't love the name of, but basically the concept is that the game will advance, like you could just go to the end of the game if you knew how to get there, but the thing is that when you're playing it, you don't. So the core point of the game is, or like the core loop of the game is learning new facts, using those facts in their appropriate settings, and then those appropriate settings take you on a journey that leads you to learn even more new facts, which lets you so it's sort of a lock and key system, but the keys are facts that you learn about how the game world works. So that's one system, and I've got this cool, like, series of books that you can translate into different languages in order to figure out that you have to go to a specific location in the abyss to find a crystal that lets you summon a cool cat dude named Catju. He's a giant cat. He's very cute. He's in my trailer. And so, yeah, so it's about, do you know how to do the thing? And if you do, then you can do it. And if you don't, you don't. The other system, however, is one that would follow sort of a similar vibe, but wouldn't necessarily need you to read everything. The reading in that case would still be flavor, but by collecting the books and the conversation pieces, what you would get is a statistical upgrade. Think about it sort of like if you were grinding in a normal RPG, you were like fighting, basic enemies, or you're picking up things in like a collectathon, like in a 3D platforming collectathon. And and as you get more things, numbers go up, and then you can use those numbers and specific, I say numbers go up, it sounds really boring when I put it like that, but it's basically like, for example, you'd gain like knowledge in engineering, we'll call it, and then you can go around and smash the use knowledge engineering button on a bunch of stuff, and on some of it, using knowledge engineering will unlock the next area. So for example, maybe there's like a landslide, and you slam knowledge engineering on it, but your knowledge engineering isn't high enough, so then you got to go around and read some engineering books, and then you come back and you hit knowledge engineering, and now the landslide goes away. And that sounds really simplistic, but you can flavor it in a way that's interesting and tells players about the world. And and isn't that kind of just what turn-based combat is? Is like you make your attack number go up so that you can attack the enemy more than they can attack you. And sure, usually if you're doing your turn-based combat right, there's more to it than that. But like that's sort of the thing I was thinking about for putting at least a little bit more of a systemic element into my upcoming game. Making it what I'm calling a knowledge-based RPG. So yeah, those are sort of my two ideas. But at the end of the day, the thing that will sell them is executions. So that's why All the Promised Burn is shaping up to be a sort of half visual novel, half explore the world and learn things sort of game. I've described it as a knowledge-based game. I've just tried describing it as a JRPG without combat, where you've got the side quests where you go around and you talk to people, and you've got the main quest where you have this sort of anime-esque storyline. All the Promised Burn story, very much like Little Burn Maiden, is going to be this interfactional political drama focusing on the emotions and tensions between characters and whether they will betray you or end up on your side, as well as all the characters coping with the fact that they live in a very dangerous world with a lot of bad people and are themselves probably not necessarily great people, and how they navigate that both successfully and not. I'm probably not describing this in a way that is super appealing to people. I don't know, I'm still working on my messaging, so actually let me know what part of this sounds interesting to you. Little Burn Maiden, my assassin life sim about murder and self-care. Don't forget that you can go ahead and buy it from the link in the description in the comments. Also, you can, if you're excited for my next cave, don't forget to wishlist it on Steam. That's free, unlike Little Burn Maiden, which is only $1 USD. And yeah, I look really, thank you for joining me for my 25th? Thank you for joining me for my 5th anniversary. I am still really proud of having actually finished this game. I know there's a lot of things about it that are kind of a disaster, but it's my scrappy little disaster, and for that, I'm really proud, and I hope that you can find some fun in it too. Thank you very much.